Hi everybody, we are back for the second video in part 3, Bring the Magic, and this is all about getting your students out of their seats, getting them up and moving. Okay, so something that people hear me say all the time is ditch the desks. Students do not want to be sitting, they don't want to be in their seats feeling like it's an academic lesson. They want to have fun, they want to move, and you can do that in a way that doesn't feel like chaos. Okay, so movement does not have to feel like chaos. It does require a lot of pre-teaching, a lot of explaining, letting students know exactly what's expected of them and what the activity will entail, but you can totally do it. Okay, so I have a big list in your workbook of some examples of out-of-desk activities, and I'm going to show you up close a couple of these here. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about are breakout rooms or escape rooms. They're really popular right now, so that's one of those trends that we mentioned in the last video, things that students are excited about. You can make an escape room themed around your counseling topic. So this is a picture from a stress management escape room that I did. So in the envelopes are puzzles or decoders or clues for whatever the students are solving. So they're moving around the room, they're solving puzzles, they're looking for clues in the room, but they're learning while they're doing it. It's all centered around our topic of stress management. Each challenge is a different part of the process. So some are about getting organized, and some are about doing exercise or yoga to manage stress. So it's all centered around our topic and it's purposeful, but it's also fun. They have a great time with these. Another activity that I love to do, I don't know if there is a name for this, I call it an interest walk, but I do this often with career lessons. So what I will do is hang pictures or colors around the room. With the younger students, I tend to stick with colors. With your older students, you could just name the career clusters, but for me, I label each area of the room with a color that represents a career cluster. And then I will show a slide like this. So we're talking about careers and how you can incorporate your passions and your interests and your skills. So this particular slide is about passion. So what lights your fire? And then I've got 6 options. So helping people get what they need, you're going to walk to blue or hike to blue because this is a camping theme lesson. Then I have creating something beautiful, hike to purple, and so forth. So when they go to that section of the room, they can collect a color token from that section, or they can color a section on a handout, basically just signifying, hey, I walk to this color. And then at the end of the activity, once they have done all of them, they're going to see which color they have the most of, and that's just a way to do a career interest assessment or a career inventory. And normally those are just kind of paper and pencil activities, but this is a fun movement-based activity. They're getting out of their seats. They're seeing which of their peers have similar interests to them. They're seeing who's going where. So it's really interactive, and it accomplishes the same goal as a less exciting paper and pencil career interest inventory. So that is another example. Next is Scoot. Now, I don't have a picture to go along with this, but basically with a Scoot, you're going to hang cards around the room and they're numbered. So students will have a handout that's also numbered, and it could be anything. So I'll just go with mindfulness. Okay, so maybe at card number 1, they're practicing a certain mindfulness activity. And then on their handout for box number 1, they can say yes or no, whether they enjoyed it, just something like that. And then once you notice that all the students have finished that activity, you can call Scoot and they'll go to the next number. So it's sequential, and that's why it's called Scoot, because they're literally just scooting over to the next number. But that's a really easy way just to get them moving around the room instead of just sitting in one place and practicing a skill or activities. Okay, so here are some other things that you can do with your students. Okay, so let's talk about 4 corners. I use this in an activity in a bullying lesson for middle school. So I would label my corners. I've done it to someone, it happened to me, it happened to my friend, or I've never seen it happen. And then I would read a scenario and students would walk to the corner that best represents their experience. So it does require a little bit of vulnerability in that case, but they're seeing who's walking where, who's had what experiences, but they aren't actually having to say anything if they don't want to. Again, just a way to get them up and moving. And then of course we have a meaningful debrief afterwards. Similarly, we can do something like cross the line. You're probably familiar with this, but basically all students start on one side of the room. There's a midpoint that's marked by a line. And you can read a statement like, I have moved in the last year or something like that. And then if it's true for the students, they will walk across the line and then turn and face the other students. So it's a way to learn more about everybody's experiences. And then as you go through, it gets more vulnerable. Students are being asked to take more risks in sharing. It doesn't have to be in depth like that. It could be another topic, but that's just a way to have them share more about themselves and learn more about their peers while also moving. And the next one on there, backspin. You may not be familiar with that just yet, but that is a game that I started doing with my students. So it's very similar to the scoot that I described, but instead I basically tape a task card to the back of every student. So it's on their backs. Everybody will stand in a circle, and then I'll say, turn to the left. And so they will be reading the task card on the back of the person to their left. And then those task cards are numbered, which correspond to something on a handout that they have. And they can write their response or check a box, whatever the case may be, for that number. And then we'll say backspin, and they turn to the right. Everybody turns to the right. So then they are doing the task card on the back of the person on the other side of them. And then we'll say scramble. Everybody will move to a new spot next to different people, and we'll do it again. So that's just a way to use something like task cards, which would traditionally be used in seats, and make it more movement-based. Now, you can imagine there can be a little hint of chaos in that, but once you train your students how to do it and they're used to it, they're great at it, and it works really well. Next, we have musical chairs. This is one of my favorite things. I do this all the time in counseling. So I will basically have our seats in a circle, or you can use just sit spots or stand spots on your carpet if you don't have room to put the chairs in a circle. But instead of removing a chair for each round, you keep all of the chairs in. You just have one labeled with something. So, for example, if we're talking about emotions, I may have one seat labeled with an emoji, and then when the music stops, whoever is sitting in that spot or standing on that spot with the emoji would respond to some sort of prompt that we might have on a PowerPoint. So they're moving around the room and also answering kind of like call and response style questions that would traditionally be done in seats. Okay, next up we have a ring toss. This is really fun. You can do this with a lot of different things. I have done it where we put an emoji on cones and students toss a ring, whichever cone their ring lands on, they share a time when they felt that way. You could do it with yoga poses. You could have them toss a ring, and if they land on a certain cone, then everybody in their group does that yoga pose, something like that. Same thing with bucket toss, very similar. You're just tossing a ball into a bucket. I also really like to use those giant dice that you can get. They're inflatable, and do a roll and respond. So you could do it whole group or in small groups within your classroom guidance setting. You could have students roll the inflatable die or dice, however many you have, and then respond to some prompts on your topic. I also really like to do balloon volleyball. So I have students sit on the floor or in chairs, whatever room we have in the space that we're in, and it's two facing teams. Just think traditional volleyball, but they're just tapping a balloon back and forth. But when a student taps the balloon, they call out something related to our topic. So it could be emotions, or it could be ways to be kind, or it could be problem-solving strategies. But every time they tap the balloon, they have to call one out. That one's really fun. The students ask to play that all the time. Next is a snowball fight. This is really fun too, because it's something that students don't normally get to do, so they feel like they're getting away with something. But we use this in a kindness lesson. So I have students take a piece of paper and write ways to be kind, or a way to be kind, and then they crumple it up, and then we have a snowball fight with the paper. They all throw it around, and we do it for a couple of minutes. It's really fun. Of course, we have to talk about beforehand, set expectations that you're not throwing it hard at anyone's face or throwing them on the floor, that kind of thing. But then when I signal a transition or a stop to the activity, everybody grabs a paper, we get in a circle, and we share the way to be kind that's on there. You could do that with any topic. It could be emotions. When you pick up somebody else's paper, when you open your snowball, it could be that you share a time when you felt that way, or you model an I feel statement with that emotion. Lastly, I have on here team relays. Again, you can personalize this for whatever your lesson is. So maybe you're talking about conflict resolution, steps to a positive conflict resolution. You could have pieces of a puzzle that outline conflict resolution steps, and then mix them all up and divide students into teams, and they have to maybe crab walk to where the puzzle piece is, get one piece and bring it back to their team, and then the next person goes and crab walks to the bucket and pulls another piece and then brings it back, and they have to put it together. Any way to just get your students out of their seats and let them move. They love to do this. They feel like they're more engaged. I feel like they're more engaged, rather, I should say. And we know that research supports this. Research tells us that when students are up and moving, they have better retention and they're more engaged. And that's what we want. We want them to really be experiencing whatever our topic is and remember it afterwards. Okay, so those are some rapid fire tips for ways that you can incorporate movement into your counseling lessons. So for your challenge for this video, I want you to think about a lesson that you teach that typically involves a lot of desk time, maybe something that has a lot of handouts that you really want to transform and ditch some of that paper, and then make a list of some movement-based activities that you could use to transform that. So it could be something from that list on the prior page. It doesn't have to be. It could be something else that you have a great idea about. Just put it on your page, snap a picture, and show us in the Facebook group. I also included some links in your workbook, or just one link, I think. And it is a blog post that I wrote for the Confident Counselors website, and it's on this topic. It's all about ditching the desks and getting your students up and moving. And there are more tips on there if you want to look at that and see more pictures of activities that you could use to get your students moving. Okay, so I can't wait to see your ideas for some movement-based activities to get your students engaged. Our last video in this part 3 on bringing the magic is going to be about promoting retention. So I will talk to you soon all about that.